Mr. Clark, I'd like to call this meeting of the select board to order on November 19th, 2024. Additions and deletions to the posted agenda.
I have two, and I know the board has, I think, two as well. One, I like to just add water rate discussion with the finance committee. And then also we can move the water system discussion to below Maximum Way. I feel like that'll probably take most of our time tonight. So that's the last item, and that works for everyone.
Works for me.
I'd like water discussion, a discussion about a conservation easement on Vondel if we're to acquire that. And also add a discussion about our December meeting and having our state representatives here to talk to us about taxes.
Okay. Citizens' comments. Any? Managers report.
I'll be quick because it's been a blur. One, just want to remind everyone, we'll talk about it later tonight, but there'll be a bond vote on December 10th to acquire the Vondel Reservoir and to bond for the needed capital projects for the wastewater, for the water system. It will be Australian ballot from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Meaning you come whenever you want, fill out the ballot, leave. The clerk's office also now has absentee ballots ready. So for a reason you can't make it on the 10th or want to vote ahead of time, go down, see the clerk, and then give you a copy of the ballot to fill out ahead of time. Second, because I'm sure we'll have a meeting beforehand. I should also say on Thursday, the 5th, will be an informational session. The select board will hold to go over what will be discussed on the ballot on the 10th. So they'll be held in town hall as well, 6 p.m. I believe. So if you have more questions before the vote, please attend that session. We'll also record it, put it up so people can watch it who can't attend the meeting. LaSalle is going to be on December 13th and 14th. There is a kind of larger committee this year, so they're kind of doing very exciting things. I just saw the schedule a few minutes ago. Some very new, exciting things that hopefully kind of change up a little bit. We'll keep the theme intact. So I encourage people to look up that and attend also this weekend, this year. Finally, I'll just say that the town hall will be closed the Friday after Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving will be a holiday, and the next day is also a holiday, so we'll be closed for those 2 days. That's all I have right now.
Next up is Planning Commission. I did not see a resume for Megan Landis.
I mean, could you maybe
come on up? Just give your name and a little brief history of what you've done, please.
Sure. Megan Landis. I grew up in town. My parents were Sandy and Ken Meemsick. My dad worked for the town too, the planning zoning. And my husband and I and 3 kids moved back to town almost 3 years ago. And my background is in architecture and interior design. I went to school in Rhode Island and then New York City. I spent about 10 years there before moving to Rhode Island and then back here. So I was wanting to get more involved with the community, and design and Woodstock were important to me. So I wanted to join the Planning Commission and take part in helping to shape the village and the town in a positive manner, I hope. Definitely, I think the character of Woodstock is really important to me, coming from a design background and knowing what really floats the economy around here. That a lot of it is centered, focused on that character and the beauty of the town maintaining throughout time. Also, kind of top of mind is housing, and building, diverse economy too, I think, in the village. So we're not as, maybe as dependent on the tourism. I think that's it, kind of brief, but
Have you been to any meetings?
I went to the planning commission. I'm sort of coming out of having my third kid, so trying to get back into the things that interest me. So just been to one meeting so far.
And you can, the meeting schedule, you'll be able, meet the meeting schedule?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, as the planning commission is hasn't been fully staffed since Nicole Green resigned. Megan provides an interesting niche. We talked about Sarah providing a niche in housing. Megan kind of provides a niche in design. So planning commission is excited to welcome her.
And the trustees approved that last week.
We appoint Megan Landis to the planning commission.
For a second,
Second,
those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The clerk will follow up with you to give you an oath.
David, 911 road change, name change.
I don't know if you have any questions, but it's pretty cut and dry. I got a phone call from the state of Vermont E911 board asking us to make this change to have the road one name the entire length. Class 4 road, no houses on it. The majority of it is in Reading. Put it out there.
So it's just the class 4 road part that needs to be renamed.
Yep.
Is that what it is in Reading? Does it meet Reading?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, we have like a quarter of a mile and then it's miles of Mount Moses Trail.
The owner's been notified, or will they be notified after it changes?
There's no houses.
There's no,
Houses, but
there's no houses.
there's property owners.
There is property. Yep.
Is there a motion?
I'll move we change, the name of Reading Road off of McAwee to Mount Moses Trail.
Yes.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Next up is the Route 4 Highway School sign speed limit.
So last year, the superintendent reached out to my office about assisting with kind of some signage and reduced speed limits in front of the high school. Concerns over people on the opposite side of the street trying to cross over, people trying to leave the school to turn into with people coming down Route 4. So it is a state issue, but what the state requires is the select board to basically advocate via a letter that you're okay with these potential changes, and then the state will take your consideration into their decision making. The school has agreed to pay for any costs associated with the startup of this. I don't think we discussed ongoing maintenance, but we can talk to the school, make sure they'll cover those costs as well. The select board is in favor of this.
That would be one of the flashing signs.
Yeah, if I can sign probably down this. Yeah.
Wait, so this is gonna be a flashing sign, or it's just going to be a speed limit sign?
They've asked,
Phone speed limit signage, so I'm assuming it's gonna be one of the ones that says
School zone speed limit.
yeah,
at certain times of the day or something.
My name's Jill Davis. I live in the village. So if we're going to all this trouble, why don't we go the full way and get a crossing put there?
I think that's a state,
That's a state issue,
issue.
not ours.
yeah.
Right, but can we ask for it?
you can, the school asked for crosswalk as well. We could adapt the layout if the board wanted to, or if you wanted to wait to see how the lights went, you could.
This issue comes up every couple of years. So it would be a great idea to do it once properly.
Thank you.
Antonia?
He's muted.
Oh, you're muted.
You
You
muted.
just have to unmute Tony.
Okay, I'm done. What is this proposed new speed limit?
It was school, which I believe is 25.
25.
So it would go from 35 to 25. And just in front of the school?
It'll be that school zone, so probably a little bit beforehand, a little bit afterwards.
Okay. And that would be required 24 hours a day? That new speed, or only during school periods?
School periods.
Okay, so it would have a flashing yellow light. Is that right?
Potential, we haven't put in great detail whether it's a flashlight or not.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm fine with that as long as it's only during school hours. Or daylight hours or something. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it would be great to amend it, cost for a crosswalk and a flashing light.
Is there a need for a crosswalk?
Yeah, a lot of the kids walk off of Rose Hill. We've talked about in the town plan specifically extending pedestrian roadways all the way down to the high school. Pedestrian walkways, I should say.
So it's up to the school board. If somebody's gonna have to pay for it.
So, I mean, we don't have to sign anything tonight. We can go back to the school and see if they'd be interested in having a crosswalk. And then paying for it as well. I know they want the crosswalk. They were happy to pay for all the other costs associated with it. I don't see why they would balk at a crosswalk. But the board can also approve this pending something else we could have it signed later on or wait.
Somebody wanna make a motion to approve it, pending the discussion for a sidewalk, and they're maintaining, correct?
Crosswalk.
Crosswalk and the sign, the.
I think it ought to be a flashing sign myself.
I'm sure, so there's gonna be a flashing sign then after it says, in school zone.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, you want me to make the motion to consider this, to approve this, considering that the school also explore a crosswalk with a flashing light?
And just be clear, will you still approve it if the crosswalk doesn't?
Yeah, correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ambulance billing.
I don't know if you have any questions for me, but this is the annual subscription rate, if you will, to our member towns for us to provide ambulance service.
And last year we discussed these rates, David, forgive me, but we said we were keeping some of them, we were plateauing some of the rates to onboard them to the service.
Yeah, we pretty much guaranteed them, not guaranteed, but said 5 years. We
Mhm.
hold that price.
And we're at year
This will be the 5th year. Yes,
prices.
yes.
Have your discussions with any of these towns given you any belief that these would be unreasonable on their part?
Well, when they first got the bill the first year, they thought they were unreasonable. But now, I haven't heard much, and yeah, they're accustomed to it.
And are they all at the point of 5 years where next year?
Yeah, they all will be. Yep. I wouldn't, just for your future thought, I wouldn't recommend changing them even on year 6. You're talking about, Pomfret, we do 50 ambulance calls to. Bridgewater, 40. Reading, maybe 35, so.
Every year we write off a whole bunch of the ambulance charges. Do we write off those in other towns?
No, they reimburse us.
Well, they might have to write them off.
Yeah, the taxpayers fight them. Yep.
Is Is there a motion to approve the EMS per capita?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. The contract for the town forest, the Olmsted contract,
Yep, so this is a contract, we currently have, it expires on May of 2026. I've talked to the, vendor, they're interested in continuing the contract with, the town, they're willing to continue to pay for the needed costs associated with it. And what they requested, if the board has any changes they want made to the contract, they'd be happy to review them with me, and then kind of redo the contract if necessary.
We need to make a decision about road repair. This is for people that don't know where this is. This is a Long Hill, so I drive by it at least twice a day. And because it's for syruping, they're exempt from the truck weights, and they dig up the road pretty well at times, and our road crew has been the ones that have to go up and fix it, and they've got equipment there, so I think it's reasonable to ask them that if their big trucks dig up the road, they make the repairs rather than the town having to do it.
I've talked to them about that, and they're willing to do that, but, last year, the roads were bad no matter what, so, I don't know.
Just think we need some language acknowledging that,
they're responsible.
that added wear and tear on the road will be their responsibility to fix.
There's nothing in this contract that
No.
states that you have to. So would we say it's all of Long Hill that they use, or just in front of where
It
they
just
are?
seems to get bad where they turn in. There's two spots where they turn in to the forest, and that's those spots. They're flat anyway, so they're kind of troublesome to begin with, but I think the heavy trucks don't help it.
I think as long as there's some phrase like within reasonable means, or like a mutually justified between them and our public works director, I don't see why they'd be against that.
A mutually agreed upon cost and a mutually agreed upon schedule, timeframe. That's fine.
Okay. Any other feedback on the contract? I'll give you the board an update as soon as I can.
All right. Opera reallocation.
Yeah, the board will see in the packet, we're doing pretty good on our upper allocations. Just a reminder, we want these all to be under contract by the end of December. Feel it's anything, the Thompson Senior Center has the work, or that work will be done relatively soon. We're just waiting for an invoice on that. The tower work is under contract to get that work completed. The IT will be all spent by the end of the year with website update, permitting software, and a paychecks software as well. With one of them already being on contract, the two should be under contract in the next 2 weeks. What I'm asking for tonight is there is one bill for the South Woodstock beautification for $950. The hope was to paint the tower as well. We're not going to be able to get to that by end of December, obviously, with the weather. We have not been able to get anyone under contract to do that work. Most painters are busy and they're finishing the internal work instead. So what I'm asking is to reallocate that money towards a tower estimate. That cost came in about $41,000. So to help offset that cost, move the $5,000 to that fund. And then when we get some of the paint, we can use money from the general fund to paint the tower. It should be about $3,000. So it's not flexible.
Motion.
I move we use the unallocated money from the South Woodstock wastewater treatment plant improvements. I don't think we could ever say it's beautiful. um, to pay toward the tower with the understanding that the painting of the tank will be done from general funds.
There's-
Second,
All those in favor?
I,
Aye. EDC subscription funds.
Is Greta Caleb, we have,
yeah, she's up.
oh, Greta, hi. Why don't you go ahead, Greta? I have one
Hi.
item.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to take a minute to kind of give you an overview of why we are hoping to go forward with this RFP to build a new website.
Wait, sorry, Greta, I thought you,
Yeah.
I got the order confused. Can you just wait 1 minute? I'll do the EDC allocation.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I got the
No worries.
order mixed up.
Okay,
On your agenda sorry, let me go back. You asked us to stop making funding recommendations for new funding, which we've done. At the meeting where you asked us to do that, I said there was going to be one small thing that came up. This is the small thing. The EDC has recommended that we fund up to $2,500 for a technical website maintenance contract. It's basically an insurance policy, which is actually in force right now at 6/20. The website is down. We don't have the technical resources to fix it. And Origin, the people who would do this contract, are helping us to fix it. It was originally $600 a month. We've been paying that for quite some time. We told them that was too expensive. They offered to reduce it to $400 per month. Then we had a long discussion with them, and they think that we can reduce it further if we go to an hourly contract. And so they've offered us an hourly contract up to we're recommending up to $2,500 of allocation for 6 months, which would be about the same as the monthly contract, but we hope to extend it further because it's already started September 1st, and we owe them we should pay them. Anyway, so we are recommending a $2,500 grant or expenditure for technical maintenance for the website. And we are not making making any other.
any questions?
No, I think I just have a point of clarification, which is that the lack of payment is not what's bringing the site down for Origin's contract.
No.
Right, okay.
So it's actually not Origin's problem. It's another vendor's problem that Origin is helping us to fix.
I'm fine to approve this.
For a second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We asked Eric thank you. We asked Eric to ask for your guidance. I don't know that it's a vote. We just want to get a sense about a second issue it's related to the website, and that was what Greta was going to explain. Could we take a couple of minutes to do that?
Sure.
Go ahead, Greta.
Thank you. So, yeah, I just wanted to you may or may not be aware that we have a draft of a request for proposal for a new website build. And I just wanted to give you a brief overview of why we think that's important. WoodstockVT.com is our town's greatest media asset. And the current site was built back in 2017. And it was built by Origin, the company that John was just talking to you about. So a Canadian company, and it's been maintained by them ever since. And it's been a very expensive endeavor for our town. It was an expensive build, and until recently, it's been expensive to maintain through the same company. And so you might say, it's only a 7-year-old website, which is very true. The hope would be that a website would be relevant for a lot longer than 7 years. But with the changing internet the way it is so quickly, there have been a lot of updates and upgrades and things that we wanted to change as far as the functionality that we haven't been able to do because it's costly to do so. Our CMS, the content management system, without getting too technical about it, which I'm not really able to do anyway. It's called Drupal, and it's very complicated. It's very specialized, and there are very few web developers that are able to actually do this work. And so it's been, anytime we want to make a change, it would be an added cost. And going forward, any kind of thing that we want to do in-house hasn't been possible. So what we are looking for the board support on is going forward with this RFP so that we can make an investment much less than what was invested in 2017. We're hoping the whole thing can be done for the range of $20,000 to build a new website on a user-friendly CMS, such as WordPress or something like that. And then everything's in our hands from there on out. It's something that non-technical users in our office, in the chamber, in the town office, are also our marketing contractor would be able to do. And just going forward, it would be, everything would be a lot more flexible. And it just seems like an important investment so that we are able to adjust in the future going forward and make it a site that people are drawn to. We have better Google ratings and all that. And so that's kind of what we just wanted to, before we go farther with the request for proposal, to seek responses from firms in our area and further away. We want to see how the board is feeling about that sort of an investment.
And I think just to clarify, because you've asked it, we're not asking you for any money.
Right.
But this, we're very likely to just pause our meetings for a few months until your process of, giving us the guidelines and so forth that you want us to follow is completed. I'm expecting that in February. It's not the end of the world, and it's not too long from now. But we're ready to issue the RFP. If there's no prospect at all that in the new, under the guidelines that you will develop, if there's no prospect of doing that, it's a lot of work. The marketing group is prepared to do that work and to see what responses we get and what the cost is and what the benefits are. So we'd like to go ahead with it, but we just kind of wanted to touch base very briefly. If that's a terrible idea, we won't do it. Otherwise.
The website's owned by
The website is jointly owned. The website is jointly owned by the chamber and the town. And the chamber board and the chamber and the EDC marketing, the marketing group, which is both, have worked on the RFP together. And that I think if we may have different hypotheses about what the outcome of the RFP process is, but we've agreed to do it and to see what the market, tells us can be done and what it costs and so forth. So we're working hand in hand with the chamber on this.
And if I could add just one more piece of information, going back to the spring when we had an RFP for our marketing coordinator, and we had 2 responses to that request for proposal. Jess Kirby, our current, and another firm, both, we did not, request that any talk about rebuilding the website be in their proposals, but both firms came back saying, we strongly recommend you improve on your website and have a full rebuild. And they both quoted roughly $20,000.
So is the chamber paying for some of this?
There's no costs yet, so we have not discussed it with them. I think the assumption, I can't speak for them, but there has been no discussion of a different funding approach.
They own half, they should pay half.
I'm not.
That's my thought, but
No,
I support this, the RFP going live. I think it would be really helpful for us to understand how much new website builds would cost. I think we know at this point that Drupal, which is the content management system that we're using, is not industry standard. And so moving that to something like WordPress would be very beneficial to our website. And just the functionality for not just this marketing coordinator, but all marketing coordinators and anybody that has access to the website in the future. That being said, to jump off of Ray's point, I think that my concern, while I support the RFP, and I think the broader conversation needs to be around the chamber's lack of ability to meet their responsibility maintaining the website. So their inability to pay the domain fees, which is why the website is currently down, presents an issue for me to ask the taxpayers for more money, knowing that the party that's supposed to be an equally cost sharing is not doing its job. So I think that I think we can put out the RFP. If the RFP is done, I would like I wish somebody from the chamber was on here. I guess with the heavy caveat that we should have formal conversations about what supporting a stable and functional website is in the future for our town.
Thank you.
Any-
I'm someone who, as you probably all know, has been somewhat skeptical about the way we've been spending marketing dollars. I do, however, support going forward with, I mean, I urge you to consider seriously going forward with this. I would like to see our marketing communication strategies around both tourism, growing other diversified parts of the economy, diversifying the tourist industry so that we move some of it away from the center of the town, things like that. That cannot be done with the current website. It's just not nimble enough to respond. If you wanted to set up, for example, a part of the website that was very focused on mountain biking or gravel grinding or something like that, right now that would require going to Origins and having them build out a section for you. This is a ridiculous way of doing business with a website. I mean, nobody has done it that way for 15 years probably. So I would suggest that this will be a worthwhile investment with, again, with the caveat that I've also heard that you make sure that the relationship with the co-owners of the site is a workable relationship. I would strongly advocate that any part of the website that's pay to play is doing damage to the other parts of the website. But I do urge you to ask the EDC to go forward with this process. Thanks.
Good idea.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry.
All right.
Okay, thank
Have a
you.
lot to add.
So can I just add one thing? Just, they're gonna do an RFP, it's gonna be a lot of work, so that some of the select board's in favor of potentially spending funds when the RFP comes back for $20,000-$30,000, that you kind of somebody agreeing to spend funds in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's, again, with the heavy caveat that like my position is that this should be a town-owned asset. And that if the chamber can't hold up their end, then yeah, we need to navigate what future ownership looks like.
Right, so the feedback I'm taking away is both that it is possible to do something like this, not guaranteed, but possible. And that there are other issues other than the functionality of the site and the cost that need to be included before we come back to you, with a proposal of whatever it is we want to do. And I will, is that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's very consistent, I think, with at least what the EDC has been thinking, Greta. So, yeah, so that's exactly the feedback, the kind of feedback we needed. And we'll come back to you when we're ready to, when we've considered these issues and get your feedback on. Greta, anything to add?
No, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Greta.
Discussion, sewer update.
I don't know if that's down up if we want to quickly talk to the finance committee about water rates. Sure. Sewer rates.
Oh, okay, sure.
And Jill and Todd are here, so 3 members of the finance.
Yeah.
committee.
Great.
Oh, are we supposed to?
Yeah, I mean, once it happens, back
see.
and forth.
Okay.
So,
Joe talking to us required me to stand here, but I will.
well, have friends with you.
Zoom can't.
So I think as we went through the process of potentially acquiring the Woodstock Aqueduct, what we said all along was that we look to experts in the community to help us put together what water rates should be after an acquisition. After the successful vote a few weeks ago, when our lawyers are moving forward with the purchase of sales and all that good stuff, we do have a budget coming up that will be voted on in town meeting in March. But we've also talked about looking at sewer rates and how we do sewer rates as I've been here. So the suggestion last month was have the finance committee come in front of the board to kind of direct them into working on potential options for sewer and water rates and how that should look. And the board could kind of give them some goals on what you want those rates to accomplish. will probably be helpful for them so they can go back and kind of have some guidelines on what you're looking for. So with that said, I'll turn it over to the board.
I came up with some suggestions for what I am hoping to achieve with the new water rate card. None that, I don't think my fellow board members have seen this, but, increasing or incentivizing user conservation. So rates that incentivize the purchase of meters. As some of you may know, not all of our users have meters. So there are other towns or water districts that have different rates for different meters, but I think, or for different rates for metered and unmetered. I think that we all view it as beneficial if everybody were to be on a meter.
Yes, absolutely.
I have for the next point that we want to incentivize development. I don't know what that looks like in terms of a rate card. I don't know if that means discounting connection fees or another alternative, but that would be something I would ask you guys to look into. Right now, we don't have a stratification of certain users. Our rates are just based on usage alone. So a stratification based on historic usage for different uses. Of course, commercial uses would have different demands for water, so it wouldn't be something. Yeah.
I did just email 3 of you per email.
Yeah, but I do want feedback. Commercial uses have different demands for water, so something like a resort versus a restaurant versus an office. Obviously, it wouldn't make sense to have one commercial rate, but something that stratifies them based on use. I think something I want to be sure of is not to unduly penalize use in the case of business, because we don't want costs to be prohibitive to opening and operating a business, though we want the usage to be proportionate to the rest of the system. I thought about what it would look like for a subsidy for affordable housing. That would be going by the HUD definition, which I think Jill is with. And then in other rate cards and ordinances, I've seen special callouts for things like special uses like pool filling, which I don't know how often that happens. But that would be separated out in the fee schedule if it makes sense. That's what I have. I don't know if anybody else has other things to add.
I think getting people on the meters is important. Water in the sewer, because otherwise we're kind of getting usage and it doesn't become uniform. As far as, you know, a different rate card for commercial and heavy users, I think it would be, if possible, good to look at what some other towns do. And rather than reinvent the wheel, I don't think we're unique in a situation where we have one business in town that uses a disproportionate amount of the water.
And one other thing I'll add, like I know with the sewer, we think go by single family, double family, family, and we charge people a set rate based on that terminology. We have no way to prove who's in that house or everything else. So another way, until we get meters on every house, is a more equitable way or a better way to understand who's in that house and what the usage may be, rather than relying on them to kind of tell us or inform us.
Either bedrooms or.
Yeah, so right now for talking about sewer, because that's what we deal with currently. If they don't have a meter, we kind of rely on them telling us who lives in the house. And then we'll either charge it for a single person, a double person, or family. So typically the case, if someone leaves the house, they'll call us and say, hey, now only 2 people, we want double rates. But if someone moves in, they're not calling us and saying, hey, it's a family rate. But also it's kind of just based randomly on, we think more, there's no connection between how many people are in the house and how much is actually being used beyond what we've decided to charge them. So if there's a way.
So self-reporting is a concern, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's only for non-metered, right?
Yes. Self-report, but also I feel what we charge is that what we should be charging for 2 people in the house. Should it be higher? Should it be lower? What should we be charging for family rates? Something like that.
May have this hand.
So the proposal that we had at one stage was to charge per bedroom. Because that's a fixed, documented thing. Are you interested in looking at that?
No,
I
well,
think,
For water? For water, I am, yeah.
okay,
but it would be for both, right?
it would be,
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
I mean, I think that what we know is that usage, so if we're talking about like a house being reflective of usage and the size being reflective of usage, what we know based on the
I need
EDC's
to get
housing
something right back
report
there.
is that we have a lot of mismatched housing. So we have a lot of 2 people living in 5-bedroom houses, right? So like, I think the question then rephrased is like, is it fair for us to charge usage for a 5-bedroom house if only 2 people are living?
Great, but you've got an unmeasurable thing right now that
Yes.
isn't working.
Yeah.
I could suggest a measurable thing. You want us to find something else?
Well, I think the key is trying to find a way to incentivize connections, and then that takes care of that
Meter.
whole issue.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're trying to, I think you wouldn't be opposed to us looking at that,
No.
No.
right? I mean, so I think that was your question, are we?
Yeah. I don't think the board expects the finance committee to come back with like, this is the only one option to do. I
Okay,
think some
So, quick
suggestions,
question then, how many options would you like?
3.
How many options are there?
infinite.
3 is
3, I would think 3,
Three.
no more
Yeah.
than.
And it's interesting, just drawing an analogy to the septic world, if you want to build a 5 house, you're going to need a much bigger septic system. But if you only have 2 people living in it, the wear and tear on that system is much less. So your ongoing expense probably won't be as much because you're not going to have to pump it as often. So that's kind of where I think is, a connection fee should be based on how many bedrooms, because that's the potential use.
Yeah.
But
And-
it's hard to then say, okay, you're using all that space if you're not.
Maybe we can do how it might work for both and see what the difference is
Yeah.
in material,
I think that's a good idea.
maybe.
I think we're starting from a system where we have no confidence that we know what's going on. And no confidence that a systematic pricing structure has been applied to the stuff that we don't know what's going on.
Right.
So we're sort of starting from scratch.
You have a blank slate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to take a relatively broad scope, right, and look at.
Okay, and then another question, what is your goal in terms of what revenue do you want to create?
So,
Capital. You don't have.
Yeah.
no, I think so legally, the revenue that comes in can only offset the expenses per year that we allocate. I think the select board has gone into a sense of trying to plan for the future. So we want capital reserves built up in those 2 accounts. We want repairs and maintenance in the operating budget each year. But I think we want a revenue stream that's probably equitable to the goals laid out. However that is created, would be my kind of recommendation.
So something we've never done before.
It needs.
And you're the perfect person for us.
No, so I mean, in other words, we want to, can I check what you're saying, I think, that we want to have a revenue stream that will allow for gradual change, that will prevent radical changes because things have been deferred for so long, and then there's a big crisis.
Correct.
Yeah.
So in 10 years' time, when there's another big bill for repair, the money should be in the capital reserves and we shouldn't have to go to the town to ask for money. That's the objective.
Ideal.
Can I ask about are there more goals?
Not a global one thing I'll add is the water working group did a lot of this work on the water end. So I'd recommend reaching out to Charlie Kimball and probably Alex Molly as 2 people who really dove into this, and Stuart Matthews as well. They could probably give you a lot of insight to what they did on the water side and the knowledge they gained over 8 months. So I'd recommend having them at least talk to you early on, if not having them
And we've
involved.
talked to them a number of times. But I'll.
Yeah, I do have one simple question, is that we were given some data earlier on. Are we able to get any better data or any additional data of bills are, and the data they gave us didn't really coordinate so well, I'm asking.
Yeah, so interesting enough, when we had our Bill Tanner look through the sewer billing, compare them to the water bill, and they found a lot of discrepancies, which is unfortunately where we're at. We can probably give you as much sewer data as our system can take out. as we get closer to acquiring the water company itself, we'll have more data available. We can try to get some data between now and then. But that's always been a tough get all that stuff. So we'll get as much as we can. The water working group did acquire a usage report for a whole year. So we have that. That is 1 year.
Data that Todd's referring.
Yeah, so we can try to get more of them now that, you know, we're moving forward with this purchase. They may be more willing to share information than they were in the past.
Great. That was just a big.
And what's your timing, for this request?
Tomorrow.
Tonight.
Tonight.
Bill will work through the night.
So what I'll say is there's gonna be a budget put forward in March for the water department, which is new, and also a sewer department for like every year. Those will go into effect for July 1 of 2026. Usually we set the sewer rates, I think around this time, because the bills go out in February, I believe. So depending on when we want to start doing water billing, I'm guessing if we have them by the summer, that'd probably be a good place.
In other words, you would implement this for next year on the regular schedule for next year's billing, not for the billing in March,
Yes.
what you're saying.
I got a bit lost then. If you set the rates in November, but you want this work by July.
So typically for the sewer rates, we set around this time because we do the billing. Sorry, I went back up. The board votes on them to set them around this time. Because we do the billing in February for the year. But we have them by July 1 when the new budget goes into effect, so people could be aware of how they're gonna be billed. That'd be helpful. And we may be talking about changing how we do billing now that we're gonna have the water and sewer combined. So we may go to biannual billing, we may go to quarterly billing. So there are some options like what needs to decide too, and how we're gonna do our billing going forward.
So we'll be doing this work and the budget will already be determined, so we have to match the budget.
No, it's 1 year off, I think.
So we'll probably work in concerts between now and March on what the budget will be voted on.
No, I guess what you're saying is that the budget for March will start the pricing for the year July 1.
Right,
Yeah.
but
We're proposing a rate, you're asking us to propose a rate card for, I hope, for the year that begins July 1, 2026.
Yes.
why would we take that long?
Because otherwise we would have to propose a rate card by early March of
But
2025.
the budget is done without the rate card. The rate card and the budget are not related.
They are because of the long, well,
No, no, sorry. So yeah, so Jill's right in the sense that the budget could be $1 million, right? And then however the rate card's set up, the rates would be set to get to that $1 million,
Mm.
right? So
So we could propose something that would be implemented on July 1, 2025.
perhaps.
That would be, wouldn't that be better to start?
it depends. Can we make that, are you asking us to do that? The reason,
You can.
Possible.
can,
I mean,
yeah.
but we want you to have the time to do a
A thorough.
Well, there's only a limited amount of data. We've already explored it. The data's not going to get any better in 6 months' time. We're going to have to make arbitrary decisions. We've investigated this quite a lot already.
yeah,
It's not rocket science, and we're going to be able to do something by March, which is as good as we're going to be able to do by July. So why not get it done?
I don't agree with that.
Oh, okay. So we've obviously got lots of discussions to have between us.
I agree with trying to.
Yeah.
But I don't want to commit to a recommendation at a reasonable quality level without having the recommendation.
understood.
And it sounds like you're okay.
Yes.
You would prefer, you would like us to make that trade-off and we can come to you and explain what the choices are.
And I think too, once you dig into it, Jill could be right, it could take you 3 weeks. John could be right, it could take you 8 months.
No,
You know, so
it takes us through, I just think,
Would it feel better to have us check in next month?
well, you know,
No, give us a couple of months and we'll
Okay.
come back to you and say, this is what we've got to work. This is what we propose, and we'll have done some of the work by then,
I will
right?
talk to you in June.
well, yeah, and what I would suggest is that we come back next month with a work plan. And we will basically, we'll have a discussion with Eric, we'll understand what data is available, new data is available and isn't. And we'll basically figure out what work needs to be done. You've asked us to look at what work is available. Between now and then, we'll meet with all of the other folks. We'll regather that information and sort of restarting up. We'll go as fast as we can.
That works.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Is that, so next month we'll have, all right, thanks.
So did you have a question?
Yeah.
Come up, please.
I'm just curious, is there any, maybe it's been already stated and I didn't, I came in a little late. But, I'm curious how much revenue the Aqueduct Company had been generating in the past?
So,
And how much is it gonna cost to repair it and bring it up to snuff? I'm sure it's larger.
yeah, so Joe, you're walking into a different conversation. We
Okay.
haven't got to the larger water conversation yet. This is just tasking the finance committee with looking into what water rates how water rates
Sure,
should
I
be.
understand that, but how much money was generated in the past?
So the budget they have for this fiscal year, they're looking at $426,000.
That was the annual income that afforded,
That is what they're trying to raise this year to offset their expenses.
oh, I see. So how much have they been raising?
I don't have their historic data for,
That order of magnitude.
it's,
How much?
it's within, yeah.
Around 400,000?
They haven't raised their rates in 9 years, so they haven't
Yeah,
increased in that money, so it's been around that dollar figure, depending on how much consumption has happened year over year.
I see.
More consumption, they're bringing in more revenue because they're expending more water and vice versa.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to move to state reps?
Sure.
Sure.
I would like in December to put on our agenda to ask our state representative and our 3 state senators to come and talk to us about their priorities for the upcoming legislative session and for us to perhaps talk to them about what we think those priorities should be. So I would, if everyone's in agreement that that should be done in December, I would ask that we extend them an invitation.
Will do.
Yes.
They won't be able to come on a Tuesday.
No,
In
that's
December.
why December, because they're not in session yet. Great, thank you.
What else?
And we can go back to the normally scheduled.
Maxim Way. Want to go to Maxim?
Max Meadowway before the
Maxim.
walk.
Yeah, we can, yeah, we went for sewer, yeah. I don't know if anyone's here concerning that, or Max Meadow Way, or anyone online.
Yeah,
Yes.
this, oh, go ahead. This is,
Oh, Mark not.
go ahead, Reese.
Yeah, there's several of us on this call. My name is Reese Brown. I'm an owner of the Mill Building as part of Maxim Meadow Way. We are on a road that is currently considered a private road. The road services, in addition to the private businesses there, a power transfer station, a water treatment plant, and the part of the town snow removal program, whose trucks are actually the hardest on the road. It also houses the Fall Craft Fair and the Wassail staging area, so it's very integral to the town itself. The road has been overseen by an association that was led for the past 20 years by an owner in the Mill Building who has since resigned. No one has stepped up willing to take on the task of managing that road. We have, as a building, requested in the past that that road be considered a public road and its maintenance be taken over by the town. The town is currently paying into the maintenance program right now. So we are here today to ask that the town take over the maintenance of that road because in our opinion, it is far more of a public road than it is a private road. And I welcome any additional comment from Mark or Jeff who are on the line also.
Yeah, this is Mark Knott. The other regular public usage is access to the East End Park and also the new trails that were built out on the hayfields that I guess are part of the Billings farm. So I think it's widely assumed that it is a public road, and is used as a public road. But it seems to me that the costs of maintaining it are borne by the members of the Max Meadow Way Road Association, but there's a much wider public benefit.
Just a quick question. The section of road that is up by East End Park, that's privately owned as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
By somebody else, not you guys.
Okay.
We believe it
That's
is.
by us. That's by, yeah, I'm one of the owners of that private section of road there. And this is the first I'm learning of any of this right now, so I'm getting caught up. Thanks.
Yeah. That was gonna be my next question. Has the Mill Condo Association reached out to anybody else within the road association or any other owners on the privately held road?
To ask if they would take over that management?
No, to ask about coming in front of us to ask to be or the road being made public.
There is, to my understanding, and we don't know because it was managed again by one person for the past 20+ years. So I don't know who the contacts are, et cetera, but no one from that association has been willing to really get involved other than to write their check each year. And some don't write that check.
You're talking about the mill.
You're talking about the
No,
road
I'm talking about the road association, so all of those businesses on the road association. And also apparently Sunset, the Sunset Building is not part of the association, and I'm not sure who owns that piece of road that is in incredibly poor repair, but is paved up at that side.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my question is still the same. Has anyone else on, like, in the road association or outside the road, like Ben, who's on the call, been reached out to about this consideration before the board?
To my knowledge, no, but we're asking the town to take it over, which will benefit everyone who's involved. I don't think anyone would have an issue with that.
There's Dan.
You don't think anybody, Ben, do you, well, Ben's on here. I would
Well-
hate for you to say that without their input.
I don't even know how that would work functionally or contract wise. It's a private part of land. We've allowed the road to stay open for people's convenience, but the only people who legally have a right of way on it are Lawrence Rockefeller's descendants, and his heirs and assigns. So that technically is the right of way through our land. And we're keeping it open out of for goodwill, for the convenience of the community while we figure out how we can hopefully put some housing in that stretch of road there.
So which property are you, Ben? I'm not familiar with.
The parcel kind of between the Resort Corp land where the trailhead is. Actually, the top of the trailhead is on our land, the Ottaquechee River trailhead, including the turntable, from the turntable basically down to the Boy Scout shed, the bottle redemption shed.
Oh, okay, so you don't see the excessive truck traffic, the utility trucks, the snow removal trucks, that does not affect your side of the road.
Well, the snow removal, there's some back and forth there with what has happened there historically, and I think what will continue to happen there now. We see a lot of bus traffic, a lot of the tourist buses, but not the other stuff.
Just another question. I'm assuming your condominium documents for the mill detail the road arrangement, and is this request being made as a coming out of a condominium association meeting? Or
Yes.
is this just, so you have had a vote of the condominium association in accordance with your bylaws?
The mill building has discussed it and agreed to, again, ask the town to take over maintenance of that road.
I thought you earlier said you hadn't been able to reach everybody.
We are just one part of, the mill building is not the association that runs the road. We housed the person that ran the road association. That person has stepped down. We do not have complete understanding of how that association ran because it was run by one person, and it was not a topic of discussion because it was never an issue before. And Mark, step in here.
Yeah, and I don't know if the Maxim Meadow Way Road Association has, like, let's say, a telephone directory of, hey, these are all the owners or members of the association. But from my understanding, the people that pay into it are Green Mountain Power, the town of Woodstock, Mill Condo Association, But I believe that there are, Reese, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there are 10 members to the,
I think
to
there
the,
are, Dead River is down there frequently, so. they've
right,
got
Dead
to be part
River,
of it.
yeah.
That building that houses a couple of businesses near Dead River.
Right, so
I don't know what
Rick
they are.
Tobiasen and the Woodstock Food Shelf. So these are, again, this is a private road that is used very much for public purposes. So
Right,
it's,
but I think we're asking, we're asking if all those owners have been contacted about this request.
that answer is probably no, but the town of Woodstock now has been contacted.
This request is coming from the Mill Association, not the Road Association.
Right, and
The
I'm
Road
asking,
Association currently is a rudderless ship. There is nobody
Right.
in charge of it.
right, but there's still owners that can be contacted. I mean, there's emails for people at Dead River, the Inn, Green Mountain Power, Colby and Tobiasen.
So
I just, that I don't know how we act on a request that's not being made by the responsible entity, which to me would seem to be the road association is who should be making the request, not the mill building.
you're probably correct, but there is no leader of the Road Association. I don't know if that is is a formal entity or it was a name that was just created.
It's probably in the bylaws how you would elect a new head of the road association.
Right, but I'm saying I don't think the Road Association has bylaws.
Right.
Don't know that. But again, the request is coming from one member of the mill building of the Road Association because it appears that that has fallen apart and may not get what needs to be done for this winter done.
I move we table the discussion until we have authorization from the road association to continue the discussion.
This is Carolyn Olson. Sorry, I'm trying to put my son to bed at the same time while listening. The Mill Condo Association, have been running the Maxim Meadow Ray Road Association for as long as I can remember. Les Burge operated it before he left the building. Every single year, it's a headache to collect money. People just spend the money or they pay us, but they don't care about the management of it. They just pay us and say, okay, it gets done because the Mill Condo Association does it every year. But the Mill Condo Association's representative has resigned. The funds have been commingled with our funds, which doesn't make sense. We don't know where bylaws are. It's essentially a sloppily run association that doesn't have bylaws that we know and is very much a public road. And we just want it off of our hands and managed properly by the town. Because it doesn't make sense to be managed privately.
My concern is
Wouldn't we have to hear from all those private?
Yes.
Oh,
that's what
We-
Ben and I are saying.
We have, there's somebody on the road that refuses to pay every year. So he just doesn't even pay into it. So what happens if we just all refuse to pay into it? That wouldn't be fair. So we don't do that. The Mill Condo has taken the responsibility every year to just do it because nobody else steps up to the plate. And then we have some people that just don't pay because they don't feel like paying. So it's just a burden. And then the Apple Festival, which I brought up in our letter, who approved it? Did the town of Woodstock approve to get the road blocked off? Who approved to get our private road blocked off for that festival?
the
town.
It was not.
Yeah, that festival's not associated with the town, associated with the rec center.
Yeah, so who gives
resort.
who gives the town approval? Who gives approval for the Apple Festival to do that every year? Does the town give approval?
It's my understanding that the resort donates their land, so that would be between you guys and the resort. That's a private matter. We don't block off that road. This is taking a road into town inventory is a very big and large process. And we can investigate what that process will look like. But the first thing you need to do is get permission from every other owner in the road association to ask us.
If the road association is not actually an association, it's just a group of landowners, which is my guess. I don't know. We'll research that. Do we still need to get those landowners then to agree?
You're asking us to basically take their property, right? The road belongs to
The private owners.
the private owners.
So ironic part is that we don't even own the property that the road is on. We manage it and we pay into it. So how is that fair? We don't even own the road.
That's a
So
private
what?
dispute. Right,
Uh,
this is-
So
Okay,
my motion stands that we table this until you have the proper authorization for us to consider it.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Can I ask just a question for clarification? If the town takes over a road, is there state highway funding that comes with that? Okay, so, all right, thanks.
All right.
Say something, but.
Okay.
I think the matter is they can't handle it because
You guys aren't on mute.
You're not muted. We're gonna have the discussion first.
We can do our updates. So the last month or so, I've had a few conversations with Hoyle Tanner, which is the engineering firm the town has contracted with to design and run the new renovation of the main wastewater plant.
Different topic.
Oh, hold on, let me just mute them.
Leave.
You just got muted. You were just what you said came across there.
Oh, thank you.
There we go. Can you guys hear us now online?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry about that. I'll slide over. So basically, I talked to Hoyle Tanner a lot the last 2 weeks, updating what they've done this past summer. And what they're asking the town to consider is to push out the bond vote that was scheduled for March, so they can do a 30% design completion. They believe there could be some cost savings with new technology that's coming online and that's coming across from Europe. They would like to come to the next select board meeting to discuss this potential and get the select board's feedback before we move forward on any potential bond vote or completion design. So with the select board's approval, I will have them come to the December meeting and then kind of walk through the process.
To me.
Great.
Yeah. Potential cost savings. Cost savings. Make sure that is in the minutes. I said potential.
We want to hold it.
Next FY budget discussion. So we had a kickoff meeting with this board and the board of trustees. I believe it was only last week. Feels like a lot longer ago. So since then, finance team has kind of revamped the budget. They sent a new update to me. My goal was reviewed today. I didn't get it today. I blocked off my whole day tomorrow to look at it tomorrow. So I'm hoping to be able to send it to both boards by the end of this week. Give the board a week with it and then schedule some department head meetings the first week of December for the board to hear from the department heads. So that's the hope going from there. So you have some fun Thanksgiving Day reading on new budgets. Any questions on where we're staying with that? No? Okay. Now the easy part.
What a discussion.
So first, we want to start with the conservation easement,
Yes.
Susan? Yeah.
So as everyone knows, there's a separate bond to purchase Vondel for 1.6 million. I've talked to, Eric has had conversations, and I've followed up on some conversations with the Vermont Land Trust, who is excited for the town to own the property. There's nothing concrete yet, but there are town forest grants that range, I think the minimum would be 150,000 up to possibly 350, 400,000 for Vondel, in addition to some other grants through Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. They think it's a very special property that they're anxious to have it conserved. We have looked at conserving some, but not all, and we have an appraisal that details that, so that we would be keeping some of the property out of conservation, so that if we did need in the future to sell a lot or let someone build something, that would be available. But I think that, and there's also some people talking about privately fundraising to help with the purchase of Vondel. That unfortunately, we may know more about the grant from the Land Trust. We probably won't know as much about the private fundraising before the December 10th vote, but I wanted to tell everyone that. And also, I think the select board needs to express whether they're willing to continue talks with the Land Trust in conserving part of the property. We don't own it yet, so we can't really vote, but
Yeah.
I think just a sense of where everyone's coming from on that.
And just for clarity, Susan, if the town votes to have the land trust involved, and that land is forever separated from now and forever from the town, correct?
The town would still own the property,
But they can't do anything to it.
but it would have development restrictions that would allow the recreation use that's going on. It would allow us to use it for water purposes. But it would not, the portion that would be subject to the conservation easement, which again would not be all 300 acres, would not be able to be developed. Correct. And presently they're talking about 253.48 of the total would be conserved, leaving about 80, I think, if my math is right. That is not conserved. Anybody?
Sure, come on up.
Yep.
State your name, please.
So, I was just wondering, you want to buy Barbara Otranto? And I was just wondering, you want to buy the Vondel for conservation, recreation, water? Why would you hold back developmental rights
Why
on
would
like
we?
80 acres? I mean, why would you want to do that?
I think in at least this is my personal opinion. I don't want to, I'm not speaking for the board, but I think that 20 years from now, the town's runs into hard times and needs money. They could sell that acreage to someone to build a home or something, just to give the town some flexibility for the future. I think one of the, at least in my mind, haven't done is plan for the future very well. So we would be conserving the bulk of it, and the areas that are particularly environmentally sensitive, the vernal pools and the watershed area.
Well, I think you should plan for the future, and planning for the future would stop any development on that land, period. I mean, you have to decide, do you want it for this or do you want it for that?
Right.
And planning for the future, I think, would be important to keep that as a natural recreation water, not for development. That's my thinking.
Thank
Thank
you. So I'm just looking for a sense of the rest of you of whether we should be pursuing discussions with the land trust. Obviously we don't own the property yet, but I think some of these grants, the Vermont Housing Conservation Board grant applications are due in January. So we don't want to necessarily wait.
I think it's worth pursuing.
Yeah, I think it's worth pursuing. I'd be curious which part of the parcel would be left. I think, to your point, Susan, I think it's important that we have flexibility in the future. I know that property, it's hard for anybody to imagine being subdivided or sold off, but as an example, it was also hard for whoever deeded Vale Field to imagine a world in which we needed parking. And so that property is restricted in perpetuity from us being able to have parking spots there. And so that's the kind of future limitation I would hate to put on us, but also recognize the value of the conservation and the recreation that that property espouses.
Yep. Agreed.
So anything I'll say for,
Roger.
as Roger walks up, I'll make a quick point. We won't have any of this decided by December 10th, so the vote would still be the 1.6 for the Fondell. And then the board can decide afterwards if they got the money, if they want to pursue an easement or not. But the voters will still be voting on the 10th with the assumption of a bond up to 1.6.
I think this is a great idea. I just do want to echo the thought that some of it should be held back, the parts that are potentially developable. You know, rather than sell it to somebody to build $1 million mansions, I'd love to see Woodstock figure out how to do some kind of housing, some kind of multifamily housing. And if there's areas there that are available, that are zonable for that, or the slope, and they're not wetlands and everything else, I think it would be great to hold that back. And it sounds like holding back 80 acres is probably taking care of any of those areas that would. So I think it's a great way forward, Bill.
And to be clear, we have no plans to develop any of it. It's just trying to think a little bit forward.
What did you say? Could you just repeat?
No, I don't think anyone here has plans that once we own Vondell, we're going to immediately sell off a piece and have it developed. We also would like to keep all of the acreage exactly as it is, but we also, at least I think we also should be looking toward the future and not permanently restricting all of it if we don't have to.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I'm Suzanne Wooten. Twice, last Tuesday when we met, worker housing was mentioned. We put up there. I don't know what you mean, Mr. Logan, by multi-unit housing, but if he means worker housing, seems to me a bad idea to put low-income housing a mile up a road, a dirt road on a mountain. So I was wondering if you're still entertaining that idea.
Not entertaining any development ideas at present. We're just holding it for.
I mean, ever.
Yeah, I won't be on the select board, I don't believe, when those ideas are.
Okay. I won't be around at all.
Somebody's got their hand up.
Tony?
Yes. Has anyone approached the Nature Conservancy for potential grants?
I will say informally, because my son works for them and it because of the recreation use, it doesn't really fit their profile.
Oh, okay. All right. The other part of my question concerns that there seems to have been very little discussion publicly about the various merits of the purchase. There was so much more over the acquisition of the Aqueduct Company, but over the acquisition of this parcel, I haven't seen very much in the listserv or in the paper. What's up?
Well, as you know, because you joined us a week ago, I've been just trying to do like we're doing the coffee tour. I've been trying to do the Vondell tour. And Matt Powers has said that I can put his talk online. And so we'll do that.
Yeah, but maybe a weekly or at least weekly mention in the listserv would be, I might get people thinking about it and talking about it. My own experience has been that nobody seems to be thinking about it. So I just would like to see more publicity. And
Yeah,
also,
no, that,
and also mentioning how much it's going to cost people. I think everything comes down to that. How much is it going to cost me? And I know you've come up with figures, but I've lose track of what those figures are. But I think to have that pounded into our heads would be very helpful to most of us.
yeah, I think to your point, ideally tonight, the select board makes a decision on those allocation of costs, if not tonight, relatively soon. And we've kind of been holding back from going with all the information because we know the first question to people in B is how much it's going to cost. And so until we have that answer, we wanted to be able to kind of give everyone all the information at once. Here's why it's good. Here's why it's beneficial. Here's how much it's going to cost you. And so once we have that information, that will kind of be throwing that out as much.
But Eric, we do kind of have a framework of Vondel, right? If, I mean, we've talked about, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we have to borrow the entire 1.6, we don't have grants or private fundraising, a $500,000 assessment is $12 a month?
$12 a year.
$12. It was $12 per 100,000.
Per $100,000
So,
Per
yeah.
year.
per year.
Um,
So $500,000 home would be 60.
I think
Dollars.
Jeffrey's got his hand up.
yeah.
Jeffrey?
Yes, a quick question. If the Vondel, if the water section of it was conserved, would that restrict us from being able to use it looking towards the future as a water source for the water company if needed?
No, the land trust, the one grant that they're talking about is a town forest grant, and they're already drafting that so that it would allow us to use it for water.
Great, thank you. Answers my question.
So I always thought the Vondrell was for water, and now I'm hearing about, recreation, conservation and all that. It's 1.6 million. How much does a well cost? I mean, if we're looking to look to the future for water, why wouldn't we use that 1.6 that we're planning on buying the Vondrell for to put in a fund for another well? I'm getting confused as to what the Vondrell purchase is about.
Yeah, so two things. One is the select board is putting money aside for a new well that will be in the bond for December 10th is a $700,000 for a new well.
Mhm.
So that's going to be asked by you to vote for on the 10th. What we've said all along is Vondel is 350 acres of land in Woodstock, currently used for conservation, recreation, etc. In the future, it could be used as a future water source. Not right now. Its only real purpose right now, water-wise, would be if there's a massive emergency in the village, we could turn a pipe, get more water flowing to use for extra water. It's not drinkable water, but it could be used to put out a fire. But really right now, it's 358 acres of land, which is a massive asset for the town that's currently used by different groups of people for snowmobiling, hiking, mountain-bike riding, fishing, conservation, animals. And that's what the goal is right now, keep it that way, just have the town acquire it and own it rather than.
Why mesh it with the water issue if it's not really a water thing?
They're separate and it's coming up to bond because it's being sold by the Woodstock Aqueduct Company. So
Why do we need to mesh it with the water issue?
what do you mean mesh it with the water?
So, when you talk about the Vondrell, you talk about water and people are thinking, okay, that's going to be one of our water sources, and it's really not.
No, none of us have ever said that it's going to be, that it is a water source. We have rights.
Well,
to
there's water there.
There is water there, so maybe that's the confusion. There's reservoirs there and the tank is there, but the opportunity that's in front of the voters is to purchase the land for a multitude of uses, and that's why it's separated out in the warning. The
Okay.
connection to the water is that it's being sold by the Woodstock Aqueduct Company because that's who its current owner is.
Okay. So just as a citizen, these two things are getting very meshed up in my mind. It's probably meshed up in a lot of people's minds. So I would like clarification about what you guys want to buy the Vondrell for. And also clarification that you're holding back 80 acres for development. And as Suzanne said, up a road, it's a terrible road to drive on in the winter. And development, I think you said, for multi-housing, what did you say?
All right, I think we're getting ahead. I think that the idea of this being developed again by this board or the next board is not something that's realistic. What we're saying is that we have the option to conserve the land, which would greatly decrease the cost to the taxpayers. But by doing so, we're limiting the future use. And while it's hard for all of us to imagine a world in which there's more housing up there, with the realities of climate change, or in 100 years when we have different forms of transportation and need to move farther away from the rivers next to which we've all settled, it's not unreasonable to think we will need housing up there.
Well, it's a pristine, beautiful place, and I would hate to see it developed
I
for
don't,
some short-sighted
I don't
think
need.
we just want to
keep the option
keep an
open.
option open because it's been offered to us and, you know, the land trust is willing to work with us with that option open.
So it's the Land Trust of Vermont?
Vermont Land
Vermont
Trust
Land
is who
Trust.
we've been in conversation with.
Well, if there's no more comment, at our last meeting, we heard a lot of public comment on the current bond allocation, and I made some slides to catch everybody up as to where we are so that we could hopefully finalize the allocation tonight. I know this has been a point of contention. We keep having meetings in the public. And so I put together some slides last minute today to discuss something and propose what I hope is a solution. So I will share my screen.
We haven't seen those.
No.
So.
Yeah.
This is
As
new to
us
everybody.
as you.
This is literally finished this before this meeting. Like I said, this is about the December 10th bond allocation. I feel like it's a good idea to start from what we all know. What we know is what the select board has warned, which is that we have two articles that we are voting on. One is to bond the purchase of the property known as the Vondel for up to $1.6 million. The next article is to finance the following projects. The water main from the storage tank to the rec center bridge, which we know colloquially as option 1B for $5 million, the new well and pump at $800,000, and to suspend the Elm Street water main for $900,000. We also know that as a publicly owned utility, Woodstock has access to grant money that could lessen the burden of a lot of these bonds. Something that came up before the acquisition vote is that the water budget will be set by the select board and voted on town meeting day. This is once we own the water company, much like the sewer budget. We also know that water rates have to increase to run the utility properly and to save funds for future maintenance and improvements. We have a new local options tax that we passed last February that we earmarked specifically for infrastructure. And as you saw, the finance committee was here and they have been tasked with developing a new rate card. Speaking of the Vondel, this is just an overview about the acreage, what it's currently used for. It's currently enrolled in the state's current use program, if you didn't know that. As Susan mentioned, and as the select board discussed at the last meeting, the whole parcel is appraised at roughly $2 million, a little over $2 million. The town retains easements to the water storage tank and the use of the water as it currently exists. And that municipal ownership, so if we were to own it, opens the possibility up of grants, as we just discussed, towards conservation if that's something the town wants to do. And as I just mentioned to Barbara, we have agreed to bring the option to purchase the Vondel to the voters as part of the terms of our acquisition of the water company. Option 1B, which is the first big infrastructure project that we're discussing, is to address the fire flow deficiency. So if you've read the 440-page report or 400-page report, you know that our fire hydrants do not meet state standards for pressure within a water system. To remedy this, Otter Creek engineers, then MSK engineers, recommended two options, which is the replacement of the water main from the storage tank and or adding a second tank near the wells, which is on the east end of the distribution system. We voted to prioritize the replacement of the water main in this bond because the storage tank requires procuring land and a much longer process. The replacement of the water main, like I said, will go down Route 4. It currently, when I say replacement, I use that term loosely. We're mostly replacing the service. We're not replacing the actual pipe. The current pipe runs cross country, and we are inserting a 12-inch pipe down the road, kind of like in an L form, along both Cox District Road and Route 4. This will bring almost 90% of the 96 fire hydrants into compliance. And as we have about 30% water loss within the system, could help mitigate water loss there as well. Before we get started, I wanted to give you guys some background on kind of like the jumping off place for the allocation the select board discussed. The water working group, which is a group comprised of both ratepayers, non-ratepayers, village people, people who live outside the village, government officials, so trustees, select board members, and then lay people who have an interest in finance and utilities, worked together last year to make a recommendation to us to acquire the system, but they also had put together some helpful foundation for us, which is if the town owned the system, keeping users pay model, and assuming the $10 million in capital improvements paid entirely by debt, rates for users would need to increase 100%, which would place Woodstock at the top end scale for residential rates and could put pressure on low and moderate income households. If not for the requirement to increase water pressure to the fire hydrants, at least $8 million in capital improvements would not have to be made. That supports the town taking on a greater share of the cost of capital improvements, a departure from the current users pay approach. As you may know, the town already shares some of that cost in the fee paid to Woodstock Aqueduct Company per hydrant charges. That fee is small compared to the total fees paid, but is reasonable to consider increasing that amount to offset the cost. It is reasonable also to expect the current users to pay more for water that they consume, subject to reconfiguration of the rate structure in order to pay for the cost of improvements. Users benefit more directly than other residents, even in the form of lower insurance costs. It is reasonable to expect the town to increase its share of the cost, as the primary benefit of improved public safety and economic growth will benefit all members of the community. So in October, when we started talking about this, we deliberated over the allocation and tentatively agreed that the Vondel as a town asset should be borne by all taxpayers, and that option 1B would also be borne by all taxpayers, and that non-users would not be asked to pay for something that does not solely serve users. The new well and pump and the Elm Street main suspension bridge would be paid for by users only through the water utility. And this would mean that $8.3 million would be paid for by all users, and 6.6 of that would be bonded by all taxpayers. For the Vondel, like we just talked about, the cost to buy is estimated to cost around $12 per $100,000 of assessed value per year. So if your property is valued at $500,000, you will pay an estimated $60 per year, which decreases each year as the interest is paid off, which, though we just discussed this cost does not consider the possibility of grants and donations, and this is also based off of last month's bond rate. For the new well pump in Elm Street, this adds about $124,000 to our annual water budget if this is going to be borne by users only, but this does not consider the possibility of grants. Finally, 1B, this is the part that's the most contentious and the part we've heard the most about. If it was paid for by all taxpayers, it would be estimated to cost about $24 per $100,000 of assessed value. So again, that same home, $500,000 would pay $120 per year, decreasing each year. If paid for by users only, the debt service would increase the annual water budget, which Eric estimated at the old budget to be about $428,000 by $364,000. So you can see these numbers are adding up. What I am suggesting tonight, brand new suggestion, hot off the presses, we have heard a lot from the community, which is that the current allocation that we had tentatively agreed upon is disproportionate to non-users. But per the Water Working Group's recommendation, which says that we need to proportionately increase the town's share in the water system, I'm going to suggest the following, which is that the Vondel remains paid for by all taxpayers, that the water utility increases hydrant fees to $270 per hydrant, and that the water projects are all funded by users only with offsets of the local options tax, which is these amounts that we discussed previously, $60,000 of the new 1% and $75,000 per year of the Economic Development and Community Fund. This would mean that hydrant costs will increase for each parcel, everybody, about $54 on average per year. And then with the current skeleton budget we have of the water utility, usage rates will increase past current connection costs about 147%. I know that number is really scary. But it means the following breakdown, which again, these numbers are based on usage and assessed value. So the range is 74 to 80% paid by users and 26 to 20% paid by all taxpayers. And this is based on the current rate card, which we know will probably change. So this means, again, this number, which I know is like probably very scary to users, means that the rate past the current connection base rate would be at 147%. So it's everything above 300 cubic feet. Is that right, Eric? 300 cubic feet per quarter. So that is my.
So what's the, I mean, first, it would have been helpful to see this beforehand. What is the total of the hydrant fee?
So the total of the hydrant, you mean the current for the budget?
No, what you're proposing.
How many hydrants?
There's 96 hydrants.
So I can pull my calculator out, but you
Yeah.
must have that number.
Good, just over $100,000.
Over $100,000.
So that's more than tripling the cost.
Of the hydrants that
Of the
are borne
hydrants.
by everybody, yes.
Right. I'm concerned that that's a back-ended way to achieve a similar result. It seems like a very large increase. I had calculated somewhere if the hydrant fees had gone up 3% a year, because, you know, like the user fees, hydrant fees also didn't increase under the aqueduct. And so it's reasonable that those should have increased. If they increased 3% a year, they'd presently be 40,000. So I'm not quite sure why we justify raising them the percentage that you have.
Well, I think based on what we've heard, which was that the 80-20 allocation, 80% of the cost being borne by all taxpayers, 20% being borne by users only, was disproportionate. We also have the Water Working Group's recommendation that the town needs to increase their share within the system. This is an effective way of doing this that decreases the burden on non-users who we've heard from saying that this is the current proportion, the way we had it with the Vondel, and option 1B being allocated between all users is less. This basically puts this at a place where users are going to have to decide with this rate increase if they can make the case, because we separated out the Vondel and the water infrastructure, if they're going to vote for both.
Just have a quick question. You said $247 per hydrant.
$270 per hydrant.
And you say that adds up to?
$103,000.
I don't know.
It's quarterly, so it's 4 times.
Oh, you're quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now the aqueduct bill is quarterly.
You might want to flip that and.
Oh, so it's $54 a quarter.
Is $54 a quarter then?
I mean, I'm just not prepared to even, it's very hard to discuss something when it's presented in a meeting.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to kind of look at this.
So it's 54 for the whole year, not quarter.
It's 54 for the whole year.
I think
Hold on.
I've been rushed on this the whole time myself, the rates. But I need more clarification, I guess. I get what you're saying, but.
Yeah. What do you feel like you need clarification on, Greg?
Um, exactly what we're gonna pay per year, I get, well, not exactly, I guess we can't. Things
Yeah.
change, I get it.
I mean, I think that's the point, is that we don't know exactly what anybody's
Now
gonna,
I've heard two things, but hydrant costs would be $54 per year.
Per hydrant.
No, per
parcel on
Per
average.
parcel.
Yeah. We took that amount and divided it by 1897 parcels. Yeah.
So based on, because Laura asked me for help on this, so I did some calculations for her on this. So based on the $12 for the Vondel per $100,000, in a world where your house is appraised at $500,000, you pay $60 for the Vondel, and then you pay $54 approximately for the hydrant fees, which would mean all taxpayers would pay roughly $114 a year for Laura's plan as presented.
If your house is 500,000.
Yes. And then if you are a user, you're paying that $60 of Vondel. You're paying for those hydrant fees. And then you're going to pay somewhere in the range of $217 for Elm Street, Well, and 1B. So you're looking at somewhere between $331 increase per year for someone who's on the system. Based on, and that is very rough estimate, because I want to be very clear when we have these numbers. Talking about appraisals, we're making an assumption on appraisals, and we're making an assumption on water use. So as when Jill was here talking about this, the budget comes down to how much water flow is used per year.
Right.
So we're making an estimate. That estimate I gave you of $217 is an estimate of a residential house using about 500 cubic feet per year. So that was kind of just a number I pulled looking through the WAC. So obviously, if there's more usage, less usage, that number will change. So when it comes to the Woodstock Resort, their allocations will be vastly different. They're going to pay much more than someone that lives on, Central Street on the Green. But those are kind of rough numbers based on what Laura has presented.
I just don't see any way we can vote on this tonight.
I guess what other, we have a certain amount of days till the vote, and I think that we need to figure this out. So I'm curious if there are other solutions.
I'm not in, I don't know about everybody else, but we've been here for quite a while, and to have this.
45 minutes.
Thank you. See, my math brain is just gone tonight. So I just don't think a radically different method, while it might work, I don't know, but I'm not willing to vote on something that has just been presented in 5 minutes.
Do you have another solution, or so do we need more time?
I think we need more time. I think
I
you need to give us the
would
courtesy
rather-
of reviewing this.
I would rather look at this before I mean, in theory, it sounds good, but I need to really dig into it.
I'd like to think it over, so I like the info, but I'd like to.
Is there a time frame the board wants to, it's November 20th. The vote is in 20 days. We have a holiday next week. And then we're 10 days away from the vote. I'm hearing a lot of frustration in the community about not knowing how much it's going to cost. People just want to know, I think more so sometimes the allocation than what the cost is going to be. The board needs to come to some conclusion soon, or no one's going to vote for this with the frustration of what they're going to pay. They're just going to be, we've been talking about this in September. We're now
Well, we
end
may
of
know
November.
about it in September, but we've just been presented with something drastically different.
But
than
I'm
what
not
we've been
seeing
talking
any
about.
other solutions. I mean, like, I hear the
Well, I thought we
frustration,
were-
but like,
I thought we were going to have more global discussion rather than having something presented.
So just Laura presented, we don't have to talk about Laura's plan. We can have a universal discussion if we want. I implore the board to, at 7:44, to spend some time tonight while we're all together talking about how you want this to be paid for, because we're running out of time. And so we don't have to go anywhere. There's nothing else on the agenda besides minutes. I would ask the board to spend some time tonight as a group discussing how you want to see this allocation going forward. Laura presented a plan. We presented plans last week. We heard from 3 members over the last month. There's a lot of different options. If there's an idea that we can back into, where I'm happy to work on that. But I think we need to leave today, if not with a vote, then a very clear idea of when we're going to meet again with an idea of what you want that allocation to look like, so we can have some solid numbers soon.
Laura, can you? Laura. you can post them.
for which,
Oh,
I can send this to you. It's $54 per parcel for hydrants on average.
all right,
That's-
but what's the hydrant's hydrant cost
I
is gonna
think
be
if we
what?
got the whole thing that we could,
Yeah.
What's the hydrant's gonna be?
The
Raise
hy-
the increase to what?
The hydrants would be increased from $90 to $270 per hydrant
Per quarter.
per year.
are the hydrants built? I'm hearing
We-
conflicting information,
So what I've said already is it's $54 increase per year.
but are the hydrants built quarterly?
They are, yes.
So are your numbers annual or quarter?
Annual.
Please.
So 270 per year per hydrant for 98 hydrants.
96 hydrants,
How many?
96.
96 hydrants.
Yes.
Doesn't that come in around $27,000? I'm not quite sure with the
So
100.
it's $270 times 96 times 4.
So it's quarter.
So, hold up, so we're getting very confused here. Let me back up. It's $270. Laura's presenting $270 per hydrant, 96 hydrants. That is $25,920 a quarter.
Right, so it's per quarter.
Which would then be $13 per parcel for a quarter. 4 quarters at $13 a quarter is $54 for the year.
If your house is assessed at 500,000.
And so presently, the bill for hydrant is $30,000
For the year.
for the year. So you're talking
Yes,
tripling the cost on to the taxpayers.
yes, all taxpayers.
Okay.
Yes.
And I applaud actually, because, and I think this is very proactive on your part, and I agree, and I'm glad you have done this. I think that I do see your point, like, whoa, which like, there's a lot of math to work through here, you know, what's quarterly, what's annually. I think that figure should be put to this a little bit. And this is something I've been asking for a long time, in the sense of, you can't really decide a budget till you know how much revenue you have. And now we have disabled, and the rate card will not be ready for this one, so you're gonna have to go on the old rate card where everyone pays the same amount. So, yeah, the commercial interests are still gonna come out ahead on this, and it's still gonna be the taxpayers that are put on it. But I think you gotta be clear about what the
Chair,
year.
because it's based on usage, and the more you use this based on this model, the different, then that would come out to be higher paid by super users.
Right, but under so you're gonna make a different current structure. You said that's gonna work under this structure that the Woodstock Aqueduct is
Working with
doing.
her based on the current structure, yes.
I would just still say that there's an inherent cost shift there. And one thing to remember is that the Woodstock, you quoted quite the working group. There's also another segment that should be included in that, is that in no other instance could they find where a town paid into a water department for the use of the fire hydrants. There's no other town that does that, just Woodstock. So I think that that's a unique against all common, still, you're trying to reinvent the wheel even larger now. I just don't think that it's still a cost shift. And I appreciate your effort. And I think moving forward, it just needs to be a number. You need to say, this is what this will generate, this is what this will generate, and here's our budget. And then I think it's a little easier for people, because you're right, any confusion is going to lead to a vote, and then you're going to get stuck putting this all on users anyways. And you can unilaterally raise the rates of the fire hydrants, but with our new town system, we don't get to pull out a water budget number anymore on the town floor, on the floor of the town meeting, and say, we don't like that number, we want to reduce that number. That's gone. When you say you can vote down the water budget, you have to vote down the whole budget. It's not like the old days.
No, we haven't changed the system, the
Yeah, the sewer
mechanism for
budget is
voting.
separately voted on.
Yeah.
Right, and what I'm saying is that when you go, oh, so the water will be like the sewer, it'll be a separate ballot.
I don't see why it wouldn't.
Fair enough, sorry, my bad.
If I could just, I think Cena McRae has a question or comment. I would ask the board to let her speak, but then I think the board should just cut off public comment and discuss among yourself if we can come some kind of agreement or a close agreement tonight, because I think public comment's great, but I think really the board as a whole needs to decide what you want to do next. So that'll be my recommendation as the chair, that let Cena talk, ask a question, but then I think it's important that the board talks amongst yourselves on a solution, is my recommendation.
Seaton?
Oh, thank you. So my original question has changed because of a little bit more information. If it's true, so if other towns with fire hydrants, how is that paid for? If not the entire town pays for fire hydrants?
I don't
I'm
have
not
the
sure.
answer. I don't have the answer on me. I can look into that. One of my assumptions, and I don't want to necessarily make an assumption, is that they probably owned it for a long period of time, so they've just had the users pay, and not have town pay for the fire hydrants. But I want to look into that before I say anything concrete.
Okay, and then my second question, sort of going, which was my original one, is if users who are also taxpayers only, with the original version, only pay for hydrants or only pay for the water upgrades to make the fire hydrants work, how does that work with fire service?
I mean, so you're asking if someone not on the water system is paying for the hydrant, what would happen?
So with the fire department, I understand we pay the fire department, obviously. Everybody pays, village, town, users, non-users. But the fire department cannot do their job without the right fire pressure. So it's something that benefits everybody. So what I'm struggling with is, why would only users pay for that if it is something that benefits literally the entire town and doesn't uniquely benefit users? That's what I'm trying to figure out. If what it's doing is benefiting the fire department and it's the fire department's job to put out fires, why would just users pay for what is fire protection infrastructure?
I don't think anyone has ever said that people not on the water system wouldn't pay for the hydrants. I think the question is more tripling the cost to kind of come up with an end result.
Well, I think the question
For
is, if
instance, in South Woodstock, we have dry hydrants in everybody's ponds and stuff, and our fire department doesn't use the hydrants. That doesn't mean we shouldn't contribute to them, but because it is fire protection for the whole town.
yeah, so then why would only users pay for, and maybe I'm misunderstanding it, so I apologize if I am, and I do want to let you guys get back to your stuff. I'm just trying to figure it out. It seemed like before Laura's proposal, the proposal was that only people who currently are water users would pay for the upgrades to fire hydrants. Am I incorrect in that?
Correct.
Oh, okay. So what was it?
1B, the bond that we call 1B is what will improve the water to the fire hydrants. And what we're trying to come up with is a solution of how that's allocated between users and non-users.
Between all taxpayers and users.
Okay, well, users are taxpayers, obviously, as well, right? And I know it's a semantics thing. it just looked like the previous proposal was that the users only were paying for 100% of that, of 1B.
No,
Okay, and so
No,
you're trying to,
Oh, that's my current.
Yeah, the October 15th tentative agreement was that 1B and Vondel will be paid by all taxpayers.
okay. And this updated one was that everybody would pay for Vondel, and then what was the breakdown with 1B?
Yep, and that users only would pay for option 1B and the new well and the pump.
But the hydrant fees would go to offset some of those costs and the rate card.
Yep.
Okay, so Laura's proposal is, so then in that case, users, the rate goes up 146%? Is that what the number was, Laura?
Yeah, it would be, the current budget of the water utility, which we put together a few weeks ago, which is like 600 and some odd $1,000. If we add the bond debt service for those 3 projects to that
Mhm.
budget, have the cost going up 147%, but that's past the current connection cost. So everybody pays a base connection cost per quarter based on like a basic usage rate, and then anything above 300 cubic feet of water is charged based on usage.
Okay. So then, so it's the base fee plus the, so what would go up 146% would be the base fee?
It would be the usage fee.
The usage fee. So if I generally paid $100 for my usage fee, I would be paying $246 for my usage fee, roughly.
Yes.
Okay, plus the increase in the hydrant tax.
Right.
And is that hydrant tax just town, or is that town and village?
What, it's everybody, every parcel pays the hydrant fees right now.
But it's part of the town tax, not part of the village tax.
Yes,
is
it's
that
part of
correct?
the town budget. Yeah.
Okay, so users in the village would pay an increase of 146% plus an increase of whatever the $54 a year for the hydrants
Right.
for that.
Plus what we expect is an increase to the rate card once the rate card is developed, which would mean an increase in, possibly an increase in connection fees as well.
Okay, so then that means
Okay. See,
users are
See,
getting
we
hit
gotta-
3
Please move
times.
on.
we're gonna move on, see, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you, Laura, can you pull up the slide that starts with your suggestion?
Yep. One issue I see is that the bond payment will decrease over time and eventually be gone. And my guess is the hydrant fee will continue to raise. So I feel like this solution uses the hydrant fee as a way to back into the allocation, but that it isn't necessarily the most equitable way to do that.
Just yes and no. The select board will have not final say. They'll approve a budget with hydrant fees each year. So the select board will have the decision to lower or increase them and keep them the same. And then the residents will have the ability to approve or disapprove that budget based on how they feel.
I would think after the bond was paid off, there's be no reason to have hydrant fees. Quite honestly.
I mean, I think that's the philosophical debate we're having.
Could you pull the light
Yeah.
together?
And I did some, I'm certainly not advocating that people not on water shouldn't contribute. I do think, even if we have our own well, that there is a level at which contribute. I do want to note that we would be unusual in the state. I did a Google as much as I could find, and I found 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 towns ranging from large towns to one with a population of 228 people, one with a population of 2,769. All when they do infrastructure repairs, it's user only. So I've had friction because I think people get angry with the non-users for stating their position. And I do want to point out that it's just not an unusual position. It is what most towns in the state do. I'm not saying that that's what Woodstock should do. And I do think that we all benefit from the fire protection. We all benefit from a vibrant downtown and our future ability to add connections to the village, which will help all of our taxes. But I do think that there's a number that somewhere that makes sense, and I don't have that number. I note that if the user fees had gone up, I mentioned if the hydrant fees had gone up 3% a year, they'd be, instead of at 30, they'd be at like 45. If the user fees had gone up, they, instead of 441,000 total, they'd be at 575 for a $134,000 difference. So I think that was a number I'm looking at that is is non-users subsidizing the fact that users haven't had to pay a
Well-
going rate for quite a while.
I think, is this where the costs start right here, or is this next slide up?
This is the cost that I have.
Okay. All right, so the hydrant fees would be 270.
That was the previous slide, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's what he's asking.
Yeah.
us. And that's the one that it's per quarter, right?
Yes.
Is that right?
And I
Per
didn't,
quarter?
I wasn't aware we had decided that the 1% would solely go to this bond and not Vondel.
No, we hadn't decided that. That's what,
Decide that.
that's
Okay.
what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting with the separation of the Vondel and the infrastructure projects as we agreed in the warning. I do not see a world in which we can make the same argument for infrastructure tax being used for the Vondel, because we've made the argument that it has a recreation value, that it has a conservation value. And so if users only are going to bear the burden of all of the water infrastructure projects, that those offsets would be allocated towards those projects.
I just want to clarify that I don't think that's a fair statement when you're tripling the cost of the hydrants, to say that that the users are the only ones contributing.
Right, so the taxes,
They're the only ones that would be paying for the bonds.
With
wait a minute,
The
wait a
subsidy
minute,
of-
excuse me, let me just
larger hydrant fees.
get, let me get some questions in, please. So the hydrant fees are gonna be 270 per hydrant per quarter?
Yes.
So what's that a year?
Like $103,000 a year.
So, right, so in that scenario, the average cost per quarter per parcel goes from $4.35 to $13. And it goes from roughly $18 a year, right? Or $17.39 a year to $54 a year per parcel.
Eric, can you, I'm trying to find your previous Excel sheet. Go ahead, I'm sorry, you're not done yet. I'll find it while you talk.
But the 1% and the EDC or interest, 1%, the new option tax is definitely 1% for infrastructure. Mondale is not infrastructure.
No, it is economic development. I think the mountain bike people would.
Well, I don't know if it's $75,000 worth of economic development. And, you know, for somebody like myself who doesn't mountain bike, hike, fish, snowmobile,
You're a non-user, you mean?
basically, yeah. So, you know, I'm gonna flip this to why should I pay taxes for the Vondel property? So I'm looking at, you know, I know this came up suddenly, but you know, nobody's gonna be happy with whatever we do. And can you go to the next slide, Laura?
Yep.
Please. I'd like to look at this more, but if somebody had put a gun to my head and I had to make a decision, I'd have no problem with this right now.
So
Want to borrow my gun?
I got one.
I'm getting pretty close, don't worry.
So I went back to Eric, your calculation on the bond, and I have to be honest that I'm not clear if it's just I think it's just the Route 4, so I apologize, it probably should be all the projects. But you had that the total yearly bond payment, after considering the 1%, and this does not include Fundel, or Fundel getting any of that, is 347,350.
That's including Vondell.
That includes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if you take out Vondel, can you tell me what the annual bond cost is for just the 3 infrastructure projects?
I have it. It's
At the rate we're assuming.
Yeah, hold on, let me see if I have. So to do it accurately, I have to include the Vondell in this, so I get the right interest payment. Just give me 1 second.
Well, if we changed on your Excel sheet, the well replacement and Elm Street total 1.7 million. So if you just change Vondel to 1.6 to 1.7, won't that do it?
No, but so you have to also, the interest changes depending on the principal. So I gotta get the right interest number in there or it won't make sense. So I'm just trying to figure out right now. So just give me 1 second. Oops.
You pay by use of the debt service and the water budget by 350. Is that the current water budget or the water budget you guys have been?
the skeleton budget. Yeah.
So that's already included some.
Just can we just, I think it's best for the board just to, you know. Okay, so Vondell, Route 4, Elm Street, and the new well, using the 1% allocation that the select board has talked about, it comes out to $49.81 per $100,000.
I want to know the total annual bond payment.
So the total payment that taxpayers have to pay will be $473,729.67.
Including Vondel.
Including Vondel, yes.
Because it just seems, looking at this roughly, that we're asking hydrant fees to pay basically a third of the bond. Is that the annual bond? I'm just trying to think of this in a way that makes sense to me.
So if you're talking about
how much per 100 is really
So-
valuable to the taxpayers, but when we're talking allocation, I think it's more.
So the bond is $473,000. Laura,
Vondel.
yep, Laura's suggestion, hold on, 473. Laura's suggestion would move the hydrant fees to $103,000, which is a $66,000 increase. So that would be less than 25% of the total bond cost would be the hydrant
We
fees.
wouldn't have any, I mean, we're talking about not having hydrant fee at all in the budget, right? Going forward.
Well, that's what you're talking about, but I think that hasn't been agreed upon. And I think if that's something that we need to agree upon, that's a premise that none like to share.
I'll say Laura's suggestion breaks down the cost somewhere between 70 and 80% of the total cost of all this is paid by users. Somewhere about 20 to 30% of the total cost of all this is paid by all taxpayers. That's how her allocation shakes out, depending on usage and appraised value, so on and so forth.
So close to 80-20?
I don't want to say.
No, I mean close.
I would say 70 to 80 and 20 to 30. Because it's going to depend on if you go to someone like Laura or Ray, 2 or 3 people in a house, your usage is quite small. When you talk about someone like the Woodstock Resort or someone else, the higher usage, that's where that number moves quickly. So I try to get an average, you know. So that's why I don't give a direct number. That's going to be 24.3%.
But does that number also include their current usage? Right? I mean, when you come up with that number,
No, this is just for the bond.
That's just for the bonds.
It doesn't include what we pay for user fees.
So I think this Seenan's point, I'm not sure she's still on or not, but we're just talking about the bond. We're talking about Vondel, hydrant fees, and all the bond stuff. That's the separation. Then users are going to also have the user budget, their rates, and as the board discussed a month ago,
Capital budget.
significantly increasing that user budget to allocate money for future capital reserves and operating budget that's going to increase over what the WAC currently budgets.
So all taxpayers will pay between 20 and 30%.
Under what Laura has presented tonight,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm saying, yeah. And it depends on the usage.
To the degree, depending on the appraised value, yes. What we talked about previously, when we talked about 1B being shared, that broke down, came somewhere closer to 60-40. So this is a dramatic shift from what we talked about before, in favor of pushing more of the cost on the users on this bond payment.
so I would still like some time. And this is all spinning in my head. And I would suggest we reconvene sooner rather than later.
Hydrant fees or something that get voted on every year.
Well, we would vote on a budget, so
On a
we would
budget.
do it every year.
So as the bond goes down,
We could reduce the hydrant
Hydrant
fees,
fees,
is what I'm
yeah.
getting at.
Yep.
This is way more in line than what, way more in line with what people have been talking to me about. So, my opinion is, I'd share the gun with you.
It's gonna be how to get a quorum. It's gonna be how to get a quorum right after this. Vote of confidence from the chair and Greg over here.
But I have no objections to sitting on it, reconvening a day or two or whatever, but, that's just my 2 cents at this point.
Well,
I think it's an important decision, and if
I
we're
agree.
not clear, I mean, my brain isn't all that clear about it, and I would like to be more clear on something that I'm going to ask the voters to commit to.
And I just want to be clear. Laura put together a proposal for tonight. I helped her with the numbers. That's one proposal from one board member tonight. We do not have to follow this. This does not have to be what we work off of. I think Laura wanted to get the conversation moving. I don't want to speak for you, Laura, but I think she wanted to get, I think we all know we need to make a decision. And so she came up with what she envisioned was a good solution, a good compromise, or adequate, or following certain guidelines she had. So we don't have to follow that. That's just what she had. I think her hope was that we work off that tonight to come to some conclusion. So I think the board we don't have to leave right now. We can still talk about other scenarios besides what Laura has. We can start fresh, have a new one. I just don't want the board to walk away tonight, come back in 2 days, dismiss this idea, and we're back to square one Thursday afternoon.
If I come back, I'm gonna come back with a better percentage than 80-20 or whatever. So I think I would probably go with this if we had a vote tonight.
we
What,
don't
what
vote
else?
tonight.
What I'm saying is, I think we get caught up in this sometimes is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying how I feel about Laura's plan. It's a plan she created. This is not the only plan that exists for us in front of us. We had another plan 2 days ago. We had a plan October 15th. It can change. I think we want to, if there's a general feeling from the board that this is somewhere close to where you want to be, I think it's great to leave, fine tune it, come back in a day or two. If we just wanted to leave because we're not comfortable with Laura's plan, in my opinion, that's a mistake because we'll just be at square one in 2 days.
No, I'm, you know,
I just want to go home in my own time. Look
Okay,
at,
yeah.
but hopefully we'll get the proposal and make sure I understand it.
Okay.
so when will we have another meeting? I can't do Friday. Say that
Well,
right
it should be before Friday.
Hmm?
I think it should be before Friday.
Thursday morning?
I cannot do Thursday. I just,
No.
And tomorrow's too close.
We can't want a meeting unless we want to do it at 9 p.m. So just looking at the calendar, the trustees have a meeting Thursday morning at 8:15. That'll probably take about an hour. So from 9:15 onward, there's space available to the rest of the day.
Greg, do you have any flexibility Thursday? I mean,
I guess I gotta do it. I can't do it after 4, and I can't do anything.
What time on Thursday? I mean,
9, you said?
no, we can't do that.
9:15.
I'll probably have to, I just have to get coverage, but I can try to do that.
I'm fine with that.
Just trying to think.
You have I think of the 4 of us sitting here, one of the harder schedules, so I want to be sensitive to
Well, if you guys come work for me tomorrow.
that. You don't want me driving that equipment.
At what allocation? How are you gonna pay us?
It's a surprise. I think I can. As long as we don't take too long Thursday. Seriously.
So this is where I just go back to, there's 4 of us here, and I know people on Mariner and Laura's plan, that's totally fine. Is it worthwhile we're here talking about other potential plans? So again, we get to Thursday, Greg has to leave after half an hour, we don't have a solution, we push it till I
don't have another plan unless it's 50-50, so that's not gonna fly.
No.
So, I have no other plan.
Susan, is there anything else you want us to consider a different allocation tonight? Was this going to talk about, so Thursday we don't have to start fresh or anything?
No, I mean, the only thing I had been looking at is, you know, I asked you for the numbers was, you know, where would water rates be if they had actually increased? Where would hydrant fees be if they actually increased, and trying to work that into some kind of plan, but because I just got numbers today, I did not do that work. Other than I have the numbers of where both those numbers would be if they had a 3% increase.
Okay.
So shall everyone agree with Thursday morning?
Yes, I will figure it out.
What time, 9:15?
We say 9:30 just to be safe.
Yeah, I guess. How about you?
That'd be great.
Okay.
And we'll let Carrie know.
Can I just have one informational clarification? When you're dividing up the 80-20 or, 70-30,
Mhm.
did you include the fact that the school, the emergency service building, both schools, emergency serving building, town hall, or those included in the breakout too? Because those are paid by all residents,
By all taxpayers,
by
yeah,
all taxpayers.
based on the current, yeah.
So that's no, that's
No, that's,
I think that's separate. In my mind, that's separate.
yeah.
right. But I'm saying,
It's going to be paid by other towns as well.
right, but I'm saying that's part of the budget though. When we say the huge, they might only be responsible for 65%. If we're carrying 10% of of, you know, because I think that was the nonprofit schools, something like that, equated 16% of the usage. So that's kind of, you know, I think the only thing that would really use a lot would be,
You want me to calculate the percentage of the percentage that they use and have that accurately?
well, how that's, yeah, I mean, if the school's paying, you know, $20,000 and we have to pay that, if the town emergency, you know, will wash, they do a lot of washing out there. So I'd like to know what the, you know, the emergency service building is. So that's part of that, you know,
But that would be all taxpayer.
that's what I'm saying, but it should be, instead of, you know, based on this, that should be included. So that may shrink it to 65, 35 or 75.
But all taxpayers are paying for that, no matter.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is that part of the water budget, that's where we are, you're right, so we're using that, so that could shrink a little bit because we're already paying for that part.
Increased.
Right, so we could be paying 35% of it.
Oh, right.
With this plan and paying for the other public service buildings and such. We may be paying 35% of it. The users may only be paying 30. I just wanted to think that, you know, the math.
There's no reason for executive sessions.
I don't have one now.
I don't know why it's on it. Okay. Approval of the minutes, the motion for approval of the minutes from 10:3, 10:8, 10:15, 10:23, 11:4, 11:8.
I will move for all but 10:3 because I was not in attendance. So I move 10:8, 10:15, 10:23, 11:4, 11:8, and 11:14.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes from 10:3?
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Keep the